Waacking is a dance that originated from the gay club scene in LA in the 70s and is currently trending as one of the most popular forms of dance in Korean TV shows. Our conversation was mainly based on if Waacking was indeed a heritage and the issue of inscribing the UNESCO list of ICH if the state party is not a signatory, which was the case for Waacking, which originated from the US. So there's two questions. The first question is what certainly feels like an ICH, that is Waacking, but is relatively a new phenomenon. Is longevity a requirement to be considered an ICH? And the second part of the question is what do activists of Waacking or citizens of a nation that is a non-signatory need to do to be recognized by UNESCO since their state party is not does not align with the 2003 convention?
Great questions. I belong to the generation of Waacking, so to me this is really interesting. These are really interesting questions you raised, and bravo, Dylan Go. Dylan is part of the younger generation that will ask questions, and those of us of my generation can only answer them as best as we can. I just said that once a practice, twice a tradition. So Waacking as cultural heritage is not an issue. For me it is, because I belong to that generation, right? And also Waacking is not just the 70s and 80s, it has a basis. If you look at the African American and the Hispanic basis of Waacking in Los Angeles, New York, it has a very strong historical basis, which it drew honored. But Waacking in Los Angeles and New York and why it was underground in the clubs was that because of racism, because of discrimination in the US against people of African American descent or Hispanic descent. So they became spaces, the clubs became spaces, sites for people to feel liberated, to feel free. It was the same with queer culture as well. I mean, because of discrimination, people felt liberated. And but soon, as always happens with the mainstream, they co-opt that which is innovative and creative. And thanks to people like Diana Ross and others, a lot of this came to the surface, became popular, it's become transnational, which is fantastic. I mean, this is the thing, you know, sort of who wants, you know, living heritage is not frozen in time. It's living, it's dynamic, it's continuing. So drawing on African-American, Hispanic heritage, drawing on contemporary creativity and confronting racism and discrimination, people created an art form that has started having a legacy, a heritage value. And so I think that, you know, Waacking is really a phenomenon. I wouldn't call it heritage, it's a phenomenon. I do not believe it's a question of the elders are gone, because they trained a lot of next generation. They didn't actually train, you learned. There's a difference between training and learning. So the next generation learned. I'm one of those people who learned. And because I started learning once it came into, a lot of us started learning when Waacking, you know, was being emulated in discos, you know, across the world. And if you look, Saturday Night Fever, for example, well, it is, you know, it is an outcome of Waacking, if you will, why it became so popular. The music, the dance, and everything. And so in that sense, it's continuing. And the question about it being in the US, it's not an issue because, like I said, it shouldn't be, the safeguarding is not about just inscription. Remember, that's why we call, after a lot of debate on the UNESCO 2003 convention list, we called it the representative list. It's representative, it's not comprehensive. It allows you to raise awareness, it allows you to understand how to go about safeguarding. Inscription oil is not the priority there. And so Waacking can, people interested in studying Waacking like Dylan is, and other people can look at those elements that are on the representative list and start documenting and developing safeguarding plans without not thinking of inscription. So I don't believe that being a state party is necessarily a blocking, Waacking being considered, being developed and researched, studied. It's already happening internationally. Waacking is spreading. And I wouldn't like to use the word authenticity that was used by Dylan, because authenticity is very much what World Heritage Convention is about. Intangible heritage, that which is living and evolving. You can't talk about authenticity and freeze it in time. It's living and evolving. So I think it's up to Dylan's generation and my generation and others to advocate, to research, to promote Waacking, and so many other forms of intangible heritage